Hey, it's your girl AP, and welcome back to my channel. Hey y'all, so I know that it's been a minute since I've posted any video content here on YouTube, but life has been lifing. If you follow me over on Instagram at APY blog, then you're keeping up with the reels and the posts that I've put up, so you guys know I was going through it for a little bit, and I still am. That'll be for a conversation for another day. I want to wait till I'm like fully recovered before I go into depth here on YouTube. But I did want to come here and make a video in response to a question that someone asked me. I've been sharing my journey with duodenal switch, or duodenal switch, however you pronounce it, weight loss surgery. And someone asked me if I would share the cons of the surgery I had. And so I will do my best to share that information with you guys today. First, I was really intrigued by the question because I think it was kind of hard for me to kind of qualify what is a con for this in the grand scheme of things. Because what were cons for me were temporary for the most part. So I will start with one of the biggest cons was the pain. Okay, I had a major surgery where they cut my stomach down and reorganized some intestinal tract and switched some things around. So there was a adequate amount of pain and discomfort. That was a huge con for this surgery. And the aftermath was really tough in the hospital. I had an adverse reaction to my anesthesia, which resulted in me vomiting. The gas that they use to blow you up to do the surgery travels through your body like a rocket, and it's insanely painful. And at the time when I had my surgery, I was still immobile in a way. I was slightly mobile. So having to get up and walk was really not what I wanted to do. It was a requirement, especially if I wanted to get that gas to pass. But that was one of the more instant cons of that procedure, was the discomfort that I was going to experience. Now, that wasn't so much the incisions, because those were small puncture wounds in the belly. But that internal healing was pretty stinking tough. Con number 2 for me was the first 4 to 6 weeks post-op when it came to food. Of course, after you've had surgery, you're not going to go into eating solids immediately. They want you to drink water and drink your protein while your stomach's healing. And I was on a liquid diet, I believe, for about a week to 2 weeks. But fairly early on, within the 2 weeks, they were like, all right, we're going to move you on to soft foods. Except the problem was food aversion. I knew it could happen, but I didn't understand it until it happened to me. And food aversion is a very real and uncomfortable thing. Absolutely was 0 out of 10. Would not recommend. The foods that I was cleared to eat, beverages I was cleared to drink, I wanted none of it. Things that I was fine on prior to surgery, I was suddenly feeling as if I would vomit the moment I looked at it. I will never forget the day I sat down to the table and my husband made dinner for everybody else. I didn't want the dinner everybody else was having anyway, but he slid a Greek yogurt in front of me and I cried like a baby because I didn't want the Greek yogurt either. That food aversion took a lot of mental gymnastics to get by, and it took a lot of trying to figure out what I could stomach and tolerate before I was able to truly eat in a meaningful way. To the point where I was losing electrolytes, and they're like, eat the pickles. It says you need to eat pickles so that you can regain your... Drink the Gatorade Zero, but you gotta eat and drink something. It was incredibly tough. I was so thirsty, but you can't just gulp your water. So all of those things made life 4 to 6 weeks after post-op incredibly difficult. Definitely a huge con for me. Once I mastered the food, another con for me was having to really measure out my food all the time. Because you got to pre-measure everything, especially if you're meal prepping and you're going to work, which I was not, thankfully, at that time. I was at home. So I had a little bit of time to really adapt, but you're having to weigh food, portion control, and even when you weigh out the right amount, it all seems like so much for your stomach. You have to learn to stop before you feel that full feeling. Because it can cause you excruciating pain. It was quite the journey in trying to figure out what my limits were, and even understanding that the amount of fluid, what type of fluid, the type of food, the density of the food would all make an impact on how my stomach felt after eating. And things that I was cleared to eat, I didn't necessarily like it. So the food aversion did kind of like last, beyond the 6 week mark. Not as bad, but it was definitely difficult to constantly be weighing my food and trying to figure out eating the proper portions. It was tedious. It was time consuming, and I was just really impatient. Another con is the balancing act of medication. I am a lifelong user of hormone replacement for my thyroid because I don't have one. So very early on, it was kind of okay. But now I'm still losing weight. I have been, at least. So trying to adjust thyroid medications has been an absolute nightmare. Now, most good surgeons are not going to allow a thyroid patient to get surgery until their thyroid hormones are under control. So you need to have good, clean labs. You can't be hypo and you can't be hyper going into surgery, because they do understand that those things not being managed can have an adverse effect on your ability to lose weight in a healthy way. The downside to this is my medication titration has not kept up with my weight loss. So I have been in hyperthyroid mode for a while now, mostly because I have an endocrinologist who, we won't get into that in this video, but we will. Oh, we will down the line. So that's been a con, because the absorption factor changes when you have a malabsorptive procedure like I did. So the medications you're on, that can be a bit tricky to make sure that you're getting the proper dosage of the things that you're taking, and how you absorb also makes a pretty big difference. So you have to be careful. You have to be really careful about making sure that whatever medications you're on, that they're absorbing properly in your body. And that's something that requires like an effort across your specialists. If you're one of those people who has specialists, I have a couple, making sure that they're working in conjunction with your surgery now. That's been a pretty big con for me. Another, and probably my biggest con throughout all of this, is how I view myself. As crazy as it sounds, I was probably my most confident and my most comfortable in my largest size. Your body changes drastically. Sometimes I look in the mirror, I don't even notice myself. It's like I'm still trying to see me. And when I see old pictures, she feels so much more familiar to me. And sometimes, I know it sounds crazy, I look at that and I miss the fullness of my face. I miss my chubby cheeks. I miss the confidence that I felt. I don't miss the pain that my body was in. I don't miss the fear of dying in my sleep. I don't miss the hip pain because I wasn't able to have hip replacement. But on a very physical level, in terms of how I viewed myself mentally, that's been difficult. And it's not as easy as you would think it would be. I know a lot of people are dying to be thin. They want to be small. They want to be this, that, and the third, because they want in on social acceptance, or maybe they come from a background where being fat in their family was, a bad thing. For myself personally, it's just, I feel like I still don't know who I'm looking at. And it's been quite the mental gymnastics to get to a place mentally to remain healthy, so that I can still continue to make good choices for myself and not fall into a depression so deep that I incapacitate myself. So that's definitely been a big con. My last con is the way the world treats you. And not because they treat you bad, it's because they treat you better. And there's a glaring contrast between the treatment I had at 500 pounds, how people would see me, versus how people see me now. In fact, I probably feel more invisible in a lot of ways, which I'm perfectly fine with, because I'm not the biggest person in the room anymore. So people don't bat an eye when they see me. They're not staring and looking like, oof. But in the same breath, the people that I encounter and interact with, the compliments are abundant. It's no longer, oh, you have such a pretty face. It's just, you're beautiful. Men, I've never had a problem with men approaching me. Even when I was larger, men used to try to talk to me. It was more fetishy, definitely. But, male attention was never something I was really hurting for. And I'm married, so it's not a big deal. But the amount of male interaction that I have now, definitely a lot more than what it was when I was larger. And I recognize that they may not have necessarily ever seen me before, but I know that the difference is A, being mobile and walking around, but also that I'm not 500 pounds anymore, not 450 pounds anymore. And I recognize that in this society, that makes me more acceptable. And sometimes it's just a tough pill to swallow that I endured a lot in that 500, 450 pound body. And to see the blatant difference can be a bit, it just, you recognize it, and it kind of messes with me a little bit from time to time. But to the person who posed the question, if you're looking for any other types of cons, I don't have any. At least not at this point. I will be 2 years out in August, and right now we're in April, and I've had a success story by all things considered. I didn't have any major complications. I was able to lose over, at this point, 230 pounds. I got everything I wanted in terms of being able to get my hip replaced and being mobile and being with my kids and doing all of the things and having access to being able to do things. So it's not a regret for me. Now that the pain has subsided from surgery, is it an annoyance to have to take as many vitamins as I have to take? Yes. But the DS procedure in particular, like the restrictions on food and stuff is not the same as like a bypass or a VSG patient. So even the eating aspect isn't really that hard. I would say the hardest part about that is making sure I'm eating enough. But I don't have any cons because in my personal experience, I didn't have too many beyond, the initial stages of surgery. I hit all my marks. And I'm living. With any surgery, there are risks. And I knew that there would be risks. But we had to decide if a major procedure was the benefits would outweigh those risks. And in my situation, they did. The only other con that I can think of is I have really bad reflux or GERD. So I will be soon going for an endoscopy to ensure that there's not a hernia growing somewhere or anything that needs to be done, because that is a pretty discomforting part for me, is I do have acid reflux. But other than that, my quality of life is 100 times better than what it was prior to surgery. So I don't have any scary stories to tell. I don't have any, hateful, I wish I'd never done this surgery, at least not right now. And that may change, a year from now or 2 years from now or maybe 6 months from now. I don't know. But at the moment, being almost 2 years out at this point, it's mostly pros, baby. I hope that this was helpful in answering what the cons were. I'm sorry I don't have more cons to give, I guess, but I've had a pretty chill experience, and I would hope that anybody getting these surgeries, they can have those same types of experience, because, nobody wants to deal with a long list of cons. If you get what I'm saying? Like, you want to have a pleasant experience. So I hope that if this surgery is something that a person is considering and you're watching that you also continue to do research and find other DS patients who maybe have a different story than mine, so that you can get a well-rounded view of what the experience could look like from the other perspective. As always, you guys, thanks so much for watching. I promise I will be back with more content, and hopefully it'll be on a more regular schedule. But like I said, I've just been in the space of trying to recover and heal from something that I've been going through. And if you want to catch up on that, head over to my Instagram and check that out. And until next time, you guys. Bye.